What's up, guys? Welcome back to 3G Video and our podcast that we're getting started. Third episode. I'm so excited. We have a very special guest with us today. We have Miss Alex Taylor, the one and only. She's host on Hot Rod Garage Show. She has her own YouTube channel. She has so much more that she's doing. You probably recognize her, but thank you for being here, Alex.
Of course, thank you. I just kind of found a cool coincidence there. You said third guest, you're 3G. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a lot of threes going on, so.
it is. Yeah, it's a good number. I like that number. It's not seven, but it is a very good number. So.
Anyways, glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, so how are you doing? What's been up with you in the our off season, I guess, for
No, it's been really good lately because for most of last year I was on the road. Like I barely got to be home for consecutive weeks. It's like I
Mhm.
may be home for 5 days and then I would leave. It's one of the busiest years I've had. So after PRI, I just had one more event to wrap up, and since Christmas time, I've got to be home. So
Oh,
yeah, it's been really nice. So I haven't necessarily taken a lot of breaks, but I've been able to catch up on the fun, tedious office work that
okay.
has kind of been neglected
Yeah.
by being gone so much. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. It's been kind of that season for me as well. Just to have a little bit of time home, so I'm like, okay, this is good. We're getting caught up on some stuff. But
It makes a big difference.
yeah, for sure. So this is actually being filmed before Sick Week, so we're getting ready to start
Mhm.
off the next season, I guess, in racing and everything. So what all are you involved in right now? Because I know you're doing a whole bunch. Like,
Yeah, so right now, we're getting ready for our, as you said, this sick week kicking off our season, which is very early this year. Since Tom's
yes.
moved it forward, there's definitely not an off season, but it all works out. So, as I kind of mentioned, we've been planning what this year looks like, and of course, there's going to be the drag and drive events that starting with sick week. Really excited to have the 55 back together because last year at Sick Summer we hurt the motor, and it kind of took us out of the rest of the season. We probably could have come up with something, but with all the projects that Dad had and like the amount of work that needed to be done, it just wasn't possible. So getting the 55 back together, we got a full season planned with that. Um, Looking at the potential of maybe driving another car in a different series. That's all kind of in the works, but I'm
Mhm.
just constantly like trying to see something,
Yeah.
whatever might come next. Got a full year plan with different stuff. And then we got renewed for another season on Hot Rod Garage. So planning out 13 episodes there, and working on my shop. I'm trying to get my shop done. So I've got like
Nice.
these, and growing, just like I'm trying to get my ATR stuff back on track because last year I did a lot of stuff for other things and
Yep.
I didn't get to focus on that as much. So it's just all the things. It's a lot of stuff right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. You are definitely a busy young lady. That's for sure.
It's
Um,
hectic.
So, filming for like Hot Rod, what is
Yes.
that like? Because this was your first year this last year. What does that entail? Is that like you an every week thing, or like how
No,
much time does that take?
so it's interesting. Well, this will actually be the third season. So the that we're going into. So the
Okay.
first, yeah, but the first season was like very much I just showed up and we had a project like they because I hadn't done that before,
Hmm.
like I hadn't helped plan episodes. I hadn't been there. I didn't even know really like what the flow of stuff looked like. So the first season was just kind of like we would do a pre-production call a week ahead. I'd get an overview of what our project looked like, and I could start doing research on parts and figuring out like how I wanted to tackle stuff. And then I'd show up and we would shoot for 5 days. And then this past year, I got the hang of stuff a little bit more.
Hmm.
So I got to start taking on some of the ideas of like, let's do this project and, like be a little bit more hands-on. I mean, we always did all the work, but
Yeah.
more hands-on in the like planning stages of stuff. Like, let's do this project with these parts, and that was really cool. So then going into this third season, now there's a lot more like back end work. We have a really great crew. It's a small crew, but we have a great crew that gets the show concepts ready. But the last couple weeks, it's been a really last month. It's like, let's do this project car and all like these parts, and this is the purpose. And so it's a lot more behind the scenes work now for
Yeah.
like actually planning the episodes. And then when we get there, we just shoot for 5 days. But it's so much fun because it's like hanging out with
Yeah.
friends and
Well,
doing car stuff.
well, that's what makes the show fun, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
what's appealing to everybody when we watch it, and It's just you guys having fun and enjoying, the car culture
Well,
and building stuff.
I appreciate that, but it's like it is funny because like what you see on TV is very close to real life.
Mm.
We don't have other people in there working. It's just me and Lucky. And it's so funny. Like I have the funniest group of crew. There's like seven of us usually that are on set. And everybody has such different personalities that it's like just like all day randomly, you'll just hear something, somebody like either start singing or you hear something like belt out like some random phrase. And there's just so much randomness that happens during the day. It makes it, it's a really fun place to work.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm glad you're really enjoying that. So, was growing up, in race cars and such with
Mhm.
your upbringing, what was your, I don't know, what was your goals when you were younger? And then are you going in that direction, or has things kind of morphed and changed, or what does that look like?
So it's weird. When I was younger, and even now, it's like I always like when you're in school, everybody's like, well, you have to have a 5-year plan. You got to have a 10-year plan. And I never had that. Like I
Okay.
never actually had a plan of like, I want to do this by this year and I want to do that.
Hmm.
And so it was always odd talking to people because I couldn't say like, oh, this is my 5-year plan. And I even had somebody the other day say, well, you need to have a 5-year plan. If I tried to plan for this 15 years ago, it wouldn't happen. Like
Yeah.
and to elaborate on that, an example I use all the time is if I would have said 3 years ago that I wanted to drive a pro mod, I would have probably been so hyper focused on driving that car that I wouldn't have taken the side steps that
Mm,
actually led me to the seat of driving that car.
okay.
And so, my thing is like, I am really lucky to have grown up with like the family that I did and in the environment that I did, that I just found what I loved. I found what makes me happy,
Mm,
my passion. And my dad always said, he loved waking up and not knowing what the next day holds,
right.
like that because he owned his own business. And so I just found what I liked and then found how to make it my life. But along the way, I did have some like stray thoughts of like, I want to be an anesthesiologist or I want to be a lawyer. And I, at the end of the day, I realized that's not what would make me happy. So
Awesome.
it's
So
a weird answer, but
no, no, that's good. It's cool to see different perspectives of how people got where they were, or where they
Mhm.
are and where they're going. So kind of talking about where you're going, obviously you just said that you don't really have like a 5-year plan or anything like that. Is there anything that maybe like a bucket list type thing that you might have of things that you would like to accomplish, or
Yeah.
where
Yeah. So
what what are some of those?
I have like a loose, like when I say I don't have a 5-year plan, like I'm not just like free floating
Yeah.
out there. Like I have goals. It's just that I'm not so dead set that I know I'm very realistic in the sense that that might change. So some of my biggest things that I'm focusing on this year, and I am not a negative person, but I am in the sense I'm a real like I'm a little pessimistic mixed with optimism. So like I always plan like what if this one gig ends? What if that stops
Mhm.
happening? What if that? So going into this year, I have a couple different things that I'm focusing on, and one that's a really big deal is getting my shop done. Because I have all these ideas. Dad and I talk all the time. My dad and I work very closely together like you. And me and my dad talk all the time about let's make this part. Let's do this project. Let's make this happen. Well, one of the things that we need is more space. I mean, he has a big shop. He's got 15,000 square foot, but we're out of space. And I
Crazy how
need,
that happens, isn't
it's
it?
crazy. You fill up the space that you have. But I'm trying to get my shop done because that's going to allow us to store more projects. It's going to allow us more area to film. And one of the biggest things is like getting a merchandise area. And I want to just do shirts and stuff like that, but like actually expand into products. And so, like long term, I want to see ATR, grow more than just like a racing brand, but
Mhm.
actual products and stuff. And I constantly am looking for the next driving, like where do we want to go with that? Like what car do we want to build? So yeah, it's kind of loose, but
Okay, no, that's cool. So that actually kind of rolls into one of the other questions that I had for you. Um, I remember watching back when you built the 55
Mhm.
and you were getting started with that project. You guys were like, "Oh, we're just going to throw this together as a car so
Yeah.
before we can build something else." Is that still kind of in the thought, or did the 55 kind of grow on you and become something that it wasn't necessarily at first to become?
So in that first video that like we released the 55, it very much so was like this is gonna be a down and dirty build, and we're gonna pull everything out of the Nova, and we're gonna then be able to push once we accomplish our goals with the 55, we're gonna push it back out. We don't care if it, we don't care if that frame, the chassis rust, like it is what it is. It's just it's serving a purpose. Um, the second that the 55 got done, I remember very clearly, like as it's we're building it, it just grew into something that it wasn't intended to. Like it became its own independent, we weren't borrowing all the parts from dad's car at this point. Like it was its own thing. And I remember we were going to Rocky Mountain Race Week 1.0.
Mhm.
We were already late. We didn't actually make it on time, but we were still going. And I remember one of the last things was we were dropping the car on the ground. And the second that I saw it come off the chat, like off of everything that it was built on, and it sat on the ground for the first time, I was like, all I could say, and it's actually on video, I was like, I love that car. I love that car. And it was, that car became something that like I used to say, like, if something happens to it, it won't hurt my feelings. Like it's built for a purpose. I love that car so much.
Yep.
So no, it's very much so like the 55 will not get replaced in the sense that like it will always be the 55. I have no intent. We have no intentions of taking that apart.
Good.
But there will be another car that will come after the 55. Dad and I talk about it all the time. It's just what that car is and where it's going to end up for racing. That's to be determined.
Okay. That's awesome. That's cool. I figured something along those lines.
Yeah.
Just the way you guys handle that car and everything. It's always you guys always. I mean, you would take care of everything you guys do, but
But
it
the
very much
55
seemed very special to you. So
it is. And it's one of those, it's like, it was the first project. Like, I've always worked in the shop, but that was the first project that dad and I did together that we were both very much so involved in the build. And like, we got to actually create it ourselves, like us two together. And that was really cool because like we did that,
yeah.
that was our project. So, yeah.
So had you done chassis work before that at all? Like,
No,
okay.
no, I'd always watched. I mean, it's weird because and I see it every day with Hot Rod Garage now. Like
Hmm.
I always grew up where like I could have my dad 5 foot away, I could call like be like, hey, how do I do this? Like what do I do? Or I would watch him, and so it's like when I went to Hot Rod Garage, it's the first time that he wasn't really there, and it's like I just you realize how much you actually learned watching because it's like I don't have that just quick reference. I can call him, but it's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like having that internship of watching him. So it's like
That's cool.
crazy how about fast stuff you pick up, even
Yeah.
if you hadn't done it hands on. So no, when we did the chassis work on the 55, that was the first time I'd actually been hands on involved like that.
Yeah.
And I really love that because it's like building something functional,
Yeah.
but also aesthetically pleasing. So
That's
I
cool.
loved it. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. I remember watching the videos of whenever you were building it, and I was like, man, that's really cool. And I've always had a dream that I want to build my own tube chassis car at some point of some sort. And I have something kind and I have an idea in the works that it will
Yeah.
be a long-term thing, but I've always kind of looked at that, and that's why I kind of asked about it. It's just like I'm excited. And I can't imagine growing up with your dad, just like I aspire to be just a portion of what he is in his mind and how he thinks of building things. It's insane just to watch some of
he,
the things that he comes up with.
well, he was hard to keep up with like growing up because like I never knew. And I always tell people I didn't take his skills for granted. It's just that I didn't know that everybody's dad didn't just
Yeah.
operate like that. I thought that was normal. And I remember like very clearly, like he had a one day where I was at the shop, probably like 6 years old. I'd go to the shop with him and
Yeah.
hang out, and he had a block of wood. And he's like, see this block of wood? This piece is hiding in that. He made me a toy that like I pull a string and it would shoot a little propeller up in the sky. And I was like, but how do you know that specific block of wood had that? He's like, you can see it in there. And like, it was just like how he was,
That's cool.
teaching me, but he's like, it's hiding in there. But yeah, no. And if you get the chance, definitely take it on and don't be afraid to mess up a couple
Oh,
bars along the way.
oh,
But yeah,
we're
you
gonna
should
mess something
definitely
up.
do
I can guarantee you that.
it.
I
I
don't
did
know. Have
that.
you do you ever watch have you ever seen anything from Mad Max? Do you know who he is?
I do, but I don't get to
Okay,
watch.
so
Yeah.
he just revealed a car that he built. It was a 787B, like the
Mhm.
Mazda car, but they call it the 787D because they're making it into a drift car. and it's a full like or a stainless steel tube chassis, and like just seeing the chassis work on that just like rekindled that fire in me of like, no, we're building a tube chassis car. Like he's
That's
gonna
awesome.
have it. Like,
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, no,
You'll
and I
enjoy
always
it.
appreciate seeing it. So
Yeah, you have to do that. That'll be very cool
yeah,
just to
I'm
have something
excited.
too. And like when you step back from it, you're like, I got to do that.
Yeah,
That's an accomplishment. So
it's
very
gonna be
cool.
fun. So Saul, you went to Power Tour West. So I know
Yes.
with being with Hot Rod and everything, you go to a lot of their events, and I saw you took your Volkswagen Bug. So is there
Yes.
something there that you're secretly a Volkswagen girl, or what's up
So,
with that?
so it's funny because my growing up, my dad always would talk about because he grew up in Southern California, and
Hmm.
so he would go to bug-ins and everything, and he had just like everybody had when at that time had bugs.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing pictures of his, and I'm like, I want one of those. Like I always would tell him like we should do that, but Volkswagens had passed for him, and that was something he had already done and on to different things.
Yeah.
Well, a year and a half ago, not this past drive, but the drive before that, he'd always wanted an oval window, and those are expensive. And one came up in California for sale for like $1,000, maybe $1,200 for the
Dang.
body. And so I was out there filming. My dad's brother lives out there, so I like convinced my dad's brother to pick up. I was like, "Can you bring your trailer? We're gonna go pick up this bug." And we kept it at his place for like a year and a half, and we just brought it home. Nick and I went and picked it up. And anyway, so he got that, and it kind of like started this spark of like, let's do a bug again, whatever. And then on the show this year, they told me they're like, well, if you buy a car, like we can build it on the show. And we don't usually get to do that, but like
Yeah.
every once in a while, like we get to work on our own projects. And they're like, well, Lucky has his projects that we bring on the show if you'll buy a car. So, anyways, I told him I was like, the one thing I want to do is either a '59 El Camino, or I want it with random, or I want to do a bug. And long story short, as it got closer to time to doing that episode, they're like, we're not gonna do that anymore. We're gonna buy the car, and it's going to be Hot Rod Garage's car. I'm like, all right, that's fine, whatever. Cool. So I picked out the bug, and then dad and I was flying. I had like a 3-hour flight, and I'm like texting him back and forth, and I'm like trying to pick out parts. I'm like, what do you think about this? He's like, well, this one would be better. So I made this giant parts list, send it to the show, and we order it all. Well, like halfway through the episode, they're like, hey, if you want to buy this car, you can buy it. And I'm like, well, funny that turned out like that. So, anyways, I bought it, and I love that car so much. It is so simple, like it's just like you get in it and you cruise, and you don't have
Yeah.
that much stuff to watch. And it's slow. I mean, it does good on
Yeah.
everybody gave me crap on Power Tour. They're like, oh, I bet you're over there doing 40. I'm like, nope, we're doing 75. Like we're keeping up with traffic. No, I love that car. So yes, I am secretly, not even so secretly. I love that car. And I made a 17-second pass in it the other day, and it was one of the most fun things I'd ever done. I love it. It's great.
That's awesome. Well, you finally have something that I'm like in the realm of keeping up with, so that's awesome. But
There's gonna be a lot more Volkswagen stuff coming because it's like when Dad bought his first oval window, then Joe Barry told him that he had like his brother has one. So he bought one from Joe Barry, and we gotta go pick it up in Colorado. And then like 2 weeks
you
ago, he says, that, or not even 2 weeks ago, it was last week. He comes into the house, Mom and I are standing there. He goes, that Colorado trip, that got a little more complicated because I just bought another bug. So he's got 3 oval windows. He's got a 55, 56, 57. It like when it rains, it pours.
there
So
you go.
there'll be
You're just
more
gonna
bug
be
stuff
you're
coming.
just gonna be a Volkswagen shop now. Like that's all you're gonna
Apparently.
do.
Apparently.
You have to get a fastback and you get a whole bunch of random stuff.
Probably at
Get
this
a
point.
bus and just cruise cross country in it. Yeah, that's
It'd be
funny.
fun. Yeah.
So Alex Taylor is a Volkswagen girl.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
I
So
like to mix it up.
sorry, what?
No, I was just saying I like to mix it up, but
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That was one of my other questions. Is there anything that, well, you're known for, muscle cars and
Mhm.
drag racing and stuff, but is there anything that you're kind of into that isn't really in the mainstream that you're into, maybe automotive or maybe even not automotive?
Oh, um, As far as like stuff I like to do or
Yeah.
cars that I like. Um,
Either, both. Yeah.
okay. So if I had well, let's go car direction. So if I was gonna pick a car that I want that's not necessarily muscle car, but I feel like
Mhm.
it's like kind of like grandfathered in and it's stuck in there. I want a Porsche, like a 911, like an old
Ooh,
Porsche. So that
okay.
and then it's still a hot rod, but I
So
also
another Volkswagen bug, basically. Yeah.
I know, right? It's just like a more expensive one. But then I also want I want to do a 32 coupe. That's something.
Ooh,
It's not muscle car, but it's
yeah.
still a hot rod. But then as far as stuff that I like to do that's not automotive related, I love going to the lake. I like water skiing. Like that's so
Okay.
much fun. We only got to go once last year, like for a 3-day trip. But like one of the things I did, I have to present my schedule to the show every year. Like these are the things I plan to do. And
Hmm.
like penciled in, booked in 1 week is a lake trip. Like
There you
from
go.
the get-go. So
That's cool.
um I love going to the lake. And then like my sister and I grew up on like dirt bikes and we didn't like competitive ride or anything like
Hmm.
that. That's something I don't get to do anymore just for time.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find a way to pencil some of that stuff in this
That's
year.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, man, I didn't know you rode bikes at all. So that's awesome. Do you ever ride
I
street bikes or just dirt bikes? Has that been?
No, I've never really rode street bikes. Dad has a Buell. I rode it just a little bit, but I mean, not enough to count, you
Yeah.
know. But no, I mean, we didn't like I said, we never competitive rode. We didn't
Yeah.
do anything like that, but we'd ride around. Like we grew up on. I could ride a dirt bike before I could ride a bicycle. Like my dad put
Nice.
me on a little Pee Wee 50
Uh-huh.
Yamaha when I was 2.5.
That's
Like I
cool.
could ride
That's
that before bike.
awesome.
So
That's
we still
awesome.
have it.
That's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
my parents were very much against me getting a motorcycle when I got my first one, and it took a lot of convincing to get to the point that I am now. But
How old were you when you got your first one?
I was in college, which
College.
yeah, I was a freshman in college, and all my buddies, well, not all my buddies, but I was in the automotive program at my
Mm,
college, and a lot of the guys were riding bikes at the time. I was like, man, that's cool. And I had wanted a sport bike for,
right.
since I was a kid. I was like, all these things are so cool.
Yeah.
But it was always like a far-fetched dream in my head to
Yeah.
for some reason as a kid that just didn't seem obtainable. It was like there's
Yeah.
no way, like whatever. And then I got in college and I was around all these guys and they all had bikes and I was like, I gotta get a bike. Like this has to happen. And I was lifeguarding at the time and ended up just saving up money over like 4 or 5 months, and it wasn't a lot. I bought a little Honda Rebel 250, like this little like
Oh, cool.
that
Yeah.
was the only thing I could convince my mom to be okay with at the time, without her just like going crazy on me. And I was like, I convinced her with that it's slow, like it's fine, I'm gonna be safe, like
Hmm.
the only bike I ever wrecked. So
Was that bike?
yeah, it was that one. But I got that little bike. I was in band growing up and
Uh-huh.
everything, and my instrument in band, I always joke because I bought my motorcycle for less than I bought my instrument in band.
Oh
So
my
like,
gosh.
yeah, I played flute as my principal instrument in band, and I bought a flute to go into college, and I spent more money on that than I did the motorcycle.
What was that flute cost? I have to know.
Uh, it was
Like
like
rough.
25, it was like $2,500, I think, something like that.
That's an expensive flute.
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, it was important to me at the time, like I mean,
It makes sense. I mean, I
yeah.
get it. It's a
But I think
tool.
I spent
It's
1,800 bucks on the motorcycle or something when,
that is
when I
funny though
got
to
it.
be like, I paid more for my flute than my first bike.
Yeah,
That
it
is
was
funny.
like I would ride to class on the bike, and I would show up, and I'd just be like, "This is more expensive." Like I'd just be looking at it like, "There's no way."
That's funny. That does make a big difference though, like growing up, because did you have any um like background on two wheels prior to that? Like
Just
that was your,
bicycles. I mean, I rode
but not
bicycles all the
motorized.
time, but no, I never rode anything motorized.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to get into go-karts when I was a kid.
Oh
We weren't
yeah.
able to do it. My dad never really worked on cars at all. So like
Hmm.
seeing your dad and like it was just like what like just complete mind blown. But
Totally
my
different.
dad like
Yeah.
woodworking and like working on
Yeah.
houses and stuff. So that was what he did a lot of, and he was very used to carpentry work, and he tried to
Yeah.
kind of get me into that, and like it was cool because he did teach me some stuff, but it definitely was not my passion by any means. And he
Yeah.
just does not understand, like he understands a little more now, but he just
Yeah.
never understood my passion for like machines and just like I loved
It
trains growing up, and then whenever it switched to cars, he just didn't understand me wanting to work on cars because he's like,
and not
yeah, just he's like, oh, I hate having grease on my hands. I'm like, I hate smelling like wood and stuff
does.
getting splinters. Like I don't.
It's funny though,
But
because like that's my dad. He didn't have a dad that was in cars. His dad
mm,
was a carpenter as well. Like it
wow.
was houses, woodworking,
Yep.
and so then he went the mechanical route. So it's
Yep.
very, very similar in that sense. But no, having a dad that's into it definitely makes a big difference. And it was like that's one of the reasons he put us on dirt bikes so
Yeah.
young was because he was like, if you try to do it later, your skills and your
Yep.
balance and the stuff is not there. So people, when he put us on so young, are like, that's dangerous. He's like, no, it's more dangerous if they do it later.
Yeah.
Like, do it now. So no, that's funny. That is
Yeah.
cool though.
Yeah.
Okay,
When
I
I
made a
got
note that.
Yeah, I got once I got past the Honda though, I ended up in I hopped on a Harley after that.
That's a big upgrade or a
No,
big
it
difference
wasn't.
at
It
least.
was a
I
big
was gonna say it's a
difference,
big
but
difference. I
it
shouldn't say
was a
upgrade.
Harley Sportster, so it was I
Okay.
mean at the it was an 883 Harley Sportster, and I still have the bike actually, but
Oh, that's cool.
I hopped on that thing and I hopping off of a Rebel, getting onto a Harley was like, man, this thing's a rocket ship in my head, because thing is a turd, but like it felt so much faster than the Rebel, and I was like, man, like this thing's fast. That took about 3 months, and then I was like, okay, I need something faster, and it was just like,
That's
but
the natural progression.
it is, and it took a while of convincing and getting to the point, and I ended up I had an RX-7 that I should have never sold, but I
hmm
sold it,
hmm
and that's one of my I'm secretly a JDM guy, actually. So, yeah,
I could see it
yeah, I
a little
mean, I
bit.
do roll around in a European car all the time. So, I mean, you know, and I'm actually a truck guy too. So that's another thing. But
That one I don't see as much, so
which
that
is
one's more
funny because
secret.
my first two vehicles, like the first one I started the channel, it was all about like
Mhm.
it was only motorcycles and trucks. That was the only thing that was on the channel because that's all I had at the time. And but yeah, people like I mean that was when the channel was like 5 subscribers and like
Right,
so like
right in the
nobody knew.
beginning.
Yeah, so like nobody really knows about it now, but there's gonna be some truck content coming. Don't
That'll be cool.
Yeah, you'll see
It's a
it.
good, it's good to
Yeah.
mix it up though.
It'll be good. So
That's awesome. Well, very
yeah.
cool. That way you
But
can have some
yeah,
diversity.
yeah, it'll be good. But yeah, once after I got the Harley, I hopped on I got a sport bike, and then that was
You're
I
sold
knew
there. That was
yeah,
it.
that was a lot of fun. And I realized at that point when that started feeling slow, I was like, okay, this is a problem. Like
That's
we
what,
gotta get like
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, when
That
you're
this fast on the street, like, and that's the thing that's like scary, is
yeah.
and even when people say it in the cars, they're like, I did this on the street. And I'm like, even if your capabilities are like there, like it's like
Yeah.
other people's aren't. But
Hmm.
no, that's cool though. That
Yeah, I scared myself on it once. I had a buddy that we went. Yeah, it was a bad situation. But we ended
yeah,
up going way too fast in an oncoming lane and didn't there wasn't any cars thankfully, but
it could have been. It
it
could
could
have
have
been
been bad.
bad. Yeah.
So it was and yeah, afterwards I didn't even know how fast we were going until afterwards our little odometer or our trip thing
Yeah.
catches it and I was like, "Oh,
Feel like now I
that
know why my mom and dad were.
yeah." I was like, oh, "Okay, we're gonna have to calm down on this a little bit." So we I've never done that since. So
Okay, that's good. At least
I've
it's
been
a
quick, but I haven't done that since. So
right. Okay. Well, that's good.
yeah, yeah, that was a little sketchy, but
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
That's fine.
So
Okay.
what? Oh, Salt Flats. That was the other thing I wanted to talk
Oh,
about.
yeah,
So you had your first time at Salt Flats last year. I was fortunate enough to be out there to
you
witness that.
are.
That was really cool. Um, Tell me about that. What were your thoughts on Salt Flats?
So salt flats, for some reason, I don't know where this comes from. But for like as soon as I started drag week when I was 16, um, I wanted to do like that was something I wanted to do. I wanted to go to salt. I just for some reason like land speed racing was
Mhm.
a, one of those things that's like one of the ultimate goals. And I don't know why, because I don't have any background in that. My
Yeah.
dad doesn't. And I remember at my first drag week talking to Keith Turt and Tanya, and
Mhm.
obviously they're That's what they do is land
Yeah.
speed racing. And for some reason, at my first one, I told Keith Turk that, and Keith Turk was terrifying at the time. Like he still can be, but
Yeah.
he's like, you need to talk to my wife. And I was like, okay. And I remember turning in my time slip and talking to her about it. And it seems so crazy that she had as much under her belt as she
Mhm.
did and or does. And so anyways, so that's just something that's been there. And I remember watching like the world's fastest Indian, and like that
Mhm.
was like one of my
Yeah.
favorite movies. And anyway, so going into this past year in June, I was on power tour, and Keith called my dad before he called me. And then dad called me and he was like, hey, Keith just called me. He wanted to talk to me before I talked to you. And he wanted to see if, like, this opportunity presented itself for you to drive this guy's car. Keith knows him, but it's up to you. If you want to
Mhm.
do it, he said that they both talked about, like, the consequences. Cause like people have this misconception that the salt is very one of the most dangerous things, and the salt is dangerous. However, the
Yeah.
safety that is taken, like the precautions and
Mhm.
stuff, is immaculate at the salt.
Exactly.
I had never seen anything like it, and that's something I try to tell people. It's like
Yep.
it is not what you think.
Yep.
But anyway, so they both went back and forth, and they're like, this has high stakes. Like there are high stakes out here, and I'm like, yeah, but I drag race. Like there's high stakes there
Yeah.
too. And so we go back and forth, we talk about it. I kind of put it off because I just couldn't decide. Like, it's kind of weird getting in someone else's car. Never done that before, but finally came to the conclusion. It's like, all right, let's just make the trip. We'll go out to Arizona. You guys look at the car. I wanted dad to go because he has stuff that he'll look at. And I wanted Keith to go because he has specific salt related stuff that I know that he'll look at. And I know between the two of them, looking at that car, it's going to be the safest. Like, we're not going to do it if it's not safe.
Yeah.
And we
I mean,
went
you got a
into it.
dream team there, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was awesome. And so we go into it, and like the conversation we had was, this is going to be like when you go look at a puppy and you don't want to leave it because it's so cute, but that doesn't mean that's the one.
Yep.
So we're like, all right, we're prepared to turn this down. Well, we show up to Roger Beckman, Tim Cox, and we're looking at this, and this, like, it's a group of, older guys standing there, and I'm like, hey, what's up? Here to look at the car. But they were all so nice. And like Keith's looking at this car, he's like, it's one of the best cars I've ever seen. He's like, it's better than mine. And like they had some really trick stuff. Hang on, my dad's calling me. Let me
Yep.
tell him
Yeah,
just a
you're
second.
good.
Um, on phone. Anyways, so we go to look at it, decided like it looks really good, and at that point it like started to feel real. Like I'm sitting in the
Yeah.
car and they fired this big block up with a pro charger, and it's just like, whoa, I'm gonna drive that. So anyways, we go out to the salt, and my dad wasn't able to be there, but I had Keith, I had the whole crew that goes with the car. They're amazing. I had Tanya, I had some really great people in my corner. I
Yeah.
was very nervous though, like going into it, like of course like the Jesse Combs deal
Yeah.
haunts you just a little. And I have
Yeah.
all these thoughts going into it, and I'm like, this is just terrifying. But like the SCTA, the people, like they make you feel so safe. Like I
Mhm.
I was so it was one of the coolest experiences. Like even though the first couple days got rained out, like
Yep.
we had time to hang out with people. We had time to go to like the little Carmen's bar where
Yep.
all these legends go hang out. And it's just like it was such a experience. It like totally reset my mind just
Yeah.
as far as like being excited.
Yeah.
And the first pass that I saw go down the salt after I did my little rookie deal, the first pass of the event, I go out and I watch it, and it was a motorcycle, and it almost like made me like just cry. Like it was like the emotions that you feel when you watch the world's fastest Indian,
Yep.
and I'm just like, it's like a whole body like just goosebumps. So anyways, it was really cool. It was a very hectic week because
Yeah.
being a shortened week, I had to leave early and I had to fly back and forth, but I got my A license at the end of the day,
Awesome.
and doing 200 plus for a mile is a crazy feeling. Um, I definitely want to go back. I love the
Awesome.
salt. It's awesome. But I can say at the end of the day, after getting to drive all these different things this year,
Yeah.
I do like drag racing the best. But I'm glad I get to say that. I'm glad I get to
Yeah.
try all these things so I can say that. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
That's
long
awesome. So
story, but I loved
what
it.
what all have you driven? Have you driven circle track stuff? Have you driven road course? What have you done any of that?
Yeah. So I've drag raced, eighth and quarter. I've done road course. We get to do a bunch of different stuff with the show. So I've done
Yeah, yeah,
road
of course.
course. We did autocross. We've done some drifting. We've done rally racing. My sister and I did, or no, we didn't race. I shouldn't say that. We did
Yeah,
a rally event, off-road driving, and what else? Something else. I don't know. We get to do all kinds of cool
yeah.
stuff
It's
with the
awesome.
show. So,
It's really cool. It's awesome that you have those opportunities.
oh man, it's fun. I've
It's
never
awesome.
done dirt oval. I can say that. I've never done
Okay.
that, but I did do some asphalt oval stuff. So,
Okay.
yeah.
That'd be fun. I always like the asphalt oval a little more than dirt, which is weird because like we have a half-mile dirt track like 10 minutes from my house. Like it's this is a big thing. Like everybody around here loves dirt racing, and I was never really into that growing up, but I love watching NASCAR, and that's
Hmm.
really the first racing that I got into watching was NASCAR, and drag racing didn't actually come until college. In
Really?
college, yeah, I mean I knew of drag racing. My uncle drag raced, but I never
Hmm.
really like
I watched it.
yeah, well, I was born very late compared to
Hmm.
like my cousins and stuff. So my
Hmm.
cousin, my uncle's son, which they drag race together, he would help my uncle. He was like 25 when I was born. So it was one of those things like they were getting out of drag racing whenever I came, like I'd only remember them using the car like when I was 5 or like 5 to 10 was the only like time that I remember them actually using the car. And then they kind of put it away for a while because my uncle got into bad health and that type of thing. So I never really grew up at the racetrack with them. And then, yeah, we just watched NASCAR growing up. And like I said, my dad wasn't really into racing. So when I got into
Huh.
college, um, I actually went into college as a music major. So, which is
That's
kind of
a
different.
very
But,
big difference for what
yeah,
you're doing now.
but I went in as a music major and went into orientation, and I didn't know what I wanted to do at that point in my life.
Hmm.
Growing up, I always wanted to be a train engineer, and then that kind of fell off. And I know it's just
You're
it's
like
a
this.
weird path, but I didn't know what I really wanted to do, and I knew music was a big portion of what I did in high school,
Uh-huh.
and I loved marching band and everything. So I was like, oh, I'll just I don't know what I want to do, so I'm just going to do music, and then I'll take some electives to kind of figure out what I want to do. And I went into orientation. They're like, okay, this is the hardest major in the entire school. You have to do 18 credit hours every semester, and
Holy
there's no
cow.
electives. Like, if you get less than a C, you are not going to graduate in 4 years. I was like, okay, I'm
Ooh,
changing. Like, I was like,
yeah,
nope,
that's a
I'm okay.
lot.
So I'm then changed to a physics major for 2 weeks, and then I found out that they had an automotive program that they had race cars at the school, and I was like, I don't care what type of racing, I'm doing that. So
Huh,
I
that's funny.
yeah, I hopped over there and they had two dragsters, hardtail dragster with an LS7 in it, and then a softtail four-link car with Moser sponsored the school and gave them the car, and it had a big block in it and made like 750 horse, something like that. But I was the only one that could fit in the ISU car, which was the hardtail car
Uh-huh.
because I was the only one short enough to like get in it. So I was just like, yes. But
Oh, that's awesome.
so I ended up getting to drive it for a season, which was really fun. Didn't really get
That's
to
cool.
didn't get to race too much. Like, didn't really get to fully race. We just kind of did some licensing stuff. Never even actually finished the
Test.
licensing, which stunk.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that gave me the bug though. You get into a
That's
dragster at that point. And
that's a very crazy swap though, going
yeah,
from music, like playing a flute to
yeah,
driving a dragster in
yeah. It was
college.
a
Like that's
little
a big
different.
difference.
Yeah, I mean, and I still had a music minor. Like I graduated with a music minor and an automotive degree. So
That's awesome. That's a
yeah,
what? How many degrees are there out there though that's that combination?
not very
Like
many. No, that's for sure.
those
It
are
was it was very interesting going to class, the different classes, because there was two completely different mindsets.
and two different
In
people, groups of people, I would assume.
very,
Yeah,
very different. I did not fit in the music department at all. Like
I could say
at
that.
all. Because
Yeah,
I'm the only straight guy that plays flute in the entire music department.
I yeah, I
And
could see that.
yeah, it was, and which was fine, like that was just part of it. But it was like I would roll in on my Harley into class and just park right next to the door and walk in, and like all these people are just like, "What are you doing? Like, what is this guy doing?" Like walking to
Why
class
is
with my helmet
he
on the
here?
like it was so funny. But
That's
and
cool
then
though.
I'd be in the automotive department. That really felt more like my people. It was,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
was still very different because at the time, I mean, I hadn't been around a lot of the automotive people at that time
Hmm.
before that anyhow, because just I hadn't been around that type of stuff. So there was
Right.
a lot of adjustment getting in there. And I met one of my best friends, Kyle, and he did not take it easy on me for through college. He was always pulling pranks and doing crazy stuff. He was just always messing with me, trying to get me to loosen up. And it was
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely a wild experience to get kind of used to it. But and first day I met Kyle was in the drag racing program, and we came up and he we sat down in the room and we were talking about the next season, like what we wanted to do.
Hmm.
And his first answer was, "When you put nitrous on the ISU car," he's like, "It's way too slow. We got to put nitrous on." I was just like, "I like this guy. Like
I
we
like
need to do that." But
that.
he had at the time he had a nitrous dragster that he ran
Uh,
uh for himself. He ran him and his dad ran it, and then he went from that into a pro mod or a top
oh
sports.
wow. That's very
So
cool. That
yeah,
makes a
so
big that's a big testament though to like in the sense that like, I grew up around car people. So like I always like
yeah,
those people feel like they're my people,
yeah.
but I think that goes as a testament to like how you can find your people. Like
Mhm.
there is a thing, like going from like you had two very different ends of the spectrum, and then
Yeah,
like the car community, it's definitely a different group, but like
it
it
is.
is a welcoming. I mean, you'll get a lot of crap coming into it, but
Oh yeah,
it
of
is a
course.
good group at the end of the day. But that's kind of like, I think that's funny. It shows that, yeah, that's a good. You had a
Yeah,
perfect firsthand experience of finding your
yeah,
people, so that's cool.
yeah. And I think that's kind of what led to where, I mean, it obviously is part of what led to where I am today. And um, I mean, I grew up in church and everything too, which
Hmm.
is always a huge part of my life, and it still is. I mean, that's
Hmm.
channel's based on, and that's what we do there. But um, and this is gonna sound real weird to people that aren't, in this, but like I never really found my home at church
Hmm.
with the people, but and that's not I'm not downing the church
No,
by any
no,
means. Like I still there's
yeah.
people in the church that I absolutely love, and I still do. Like it's not that I still have a church family. It's not
Hmm.
they're not, but I never really found those close friendships in the church group. But then whenever I came into the automotive family and that I found Christians in the automotive group,
Yeah.
that believed the same, that had those core beliefs that were the same, that we could lift each other up with the word and with scripture, and we could speak into each other, but we had that other connection with cars as
You
well.
have to have that core
Yeah.
relation. And I can see that because the same, I mean, I grew up in Arkansas, like
Yeah.
we are in the Bible Belt,
Yeah, for
and I
sure. Yeah.
always grew up in church. And same thing, like I never really fit in. We're from a small town.
Mhm.
So like it's a lot of people like when I was younger and we were in youth group and stuff, like your friends
Yep.
that you have at school are automatically at the same youth group. Like
Yeah.
it just is a thing. But it is like I get what you're saying because it's like you
Yeah.
don't have that same
That same connection. Yeah.
connection and relation. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I get
And
it.
it always felt weird. I mean, and like I said, like church is still a huge part of
Yeah.
me, and it's
Hmm.
still, I still am close to some of the people there, but it just never it's been really fun meeting different people on the road that I can't, we can we can
Yeah.
read scripture together, or we can pray with each other and be there. And that's been really, really cool. Like John, yeah, because he's been
Sean,
he's got the
Sean,
PT
Sean.
Cruiser.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I got to hang out with him for like 3 or 4 weeks this last year because we were going between Rocky Mountain
You guys did
2.0.
all the
Yeah, and then we went into went to Death Week, and we ran
uh,
both those events, and then we also had 2 weeks in between that we hung out and just went and did all this crazy stuff, which I got videos that'll be probably have already come out on the channel when they're
I
seeing
when
this,
this
but
is
they aren't
oh
out
that's
right
cool.
now.
Uh-huh.
But that was such a cool experience, because I was able to make a friend, and
Hmm.
both Christian. You know, we were able to pray with each other. We were able to be there, and it really felt like we were growing our relationship with the Lord and also our relationship together. You know,
That's
and
very cool.
while we traveled, and I mean also, I mean just the places that we were out there. I mean, shoot, we were in Arches National Park. We went through like 6 national parks in a week. Like
That's
it was
awesome.
like we were camping out under you know, out in the out west where like just the
Yeah.
stars are insane, and you know, we're seeing all these crazy things together that God made, and just like, man, this is cool. You know,
What a
like
cool experience.
yeah, it was.
And that's something that you can't do just being stationary in one
Oh,
place, like at a, like say at church, not
yeah,
discrediting, but like you
no, of
can't,
course not.
you just don't get those same experiences. So that's a very neat.
It's so wild. I mean, and God's just been so good, you know, because like I said, growing up, I never knew what I wanted to. I kind of knew that I wanted to do something with cars or with
Yeah.
something with machines or something. You know, I always like going fast, and I always thought that was cool. But I was like, you know, and just trying to find those opportunities and make it happen somehow. And it's been a wild ride so far, and I know that we have. I know God's got so much more in the future.
Well,
So
look at just how much you've done in the last couple years,
yeah,
from meeting you at like one of the first times we met you at an
yeah,
event, like from then to now, it's grown a lot.
yeah.
So
It's been.
you're
I mean, I think
you got
I
some good
met
stuff.
you at Power Tour. I think that was the first time I like
I
officially
couldn't
met you.
remember when the first time was, but maybe it was Power Tour.
I think it was Power Tour in like 21. I'm pretty sure.
21. Right.
Because
Okay.
you were driving
Yeah.
the Camaro.
hmm I couldn't remember
Um,
if it was there or Race Week. I was thinking, for some
no, I
reason, I
didn't
was
go to
thinking
race
Race.
week that week. Or I
You
didn't
didn't
go
go
to
to
race
either
week
of
that
them.
year. Not
Okay, then
that
it had
year.
to be Power Tour. It
Yeah.
had to be Power Tour. So,
Yeah, because that Power Tour, I had been to one Power Tour before that in 19, and then we didn't
okay.
have the one in 20. And then I went back to the one in 21 with
Mhm.
Benny because that was the first one I'd done that in the.
Okay.
That was actually like the first event I ever did in the wagon too, because all the other ones had been in a truck.
Yeah.
Um, so I did that event, and then I wasn't planning on going to drag week after that because it was like 2 weeks after was drag
Uh-huh.
week, and I actually wasn't planning on going to it at all, but we started seeing some stuff. Not, I look back at it now and I'm like, that was nothing, but like we started seeing some views on YouTube and was like, oh, cool, like maybe we can make this work. So I was like, I took another week off from work and was like, I'm gonna go to drag week, and went and did drag week, and I think that was when we really I saw you a couple days, interviewed you a couple times, which was really cool.
That must be what it was though, because I forgot that year Power Tour was really late.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Okay. Because I
Yep,
was like putting it together for some reason in my mind. It was a timeline where it was a race event
yeah,
at the same time. And that's why, for some reason, I was thinking race week, because usually race week and power tour would be more in line. But it
yeah,
was, that's so,
yep.
yeah,
Yeah, it
I
was
had
the
to put
year where
that
everything was
way
almost.
delayed. It was
Yeah,
all
it
jacked
was
up. So,
weird. Yep.
okay.
And
Yeah. No, that
then you
makes
guys
sense.
went to 2.0 like
We did.
the next week
That's why
right
I'm
after that.
totally confused because we had all
Yeah.
of that. I forgot that was all back to back to
And
back.
I watched that like that first year. I was like, there is no way. Like, how is she doing all that? Now I'm looking at my schedule for this next year, like, oh crap. Like
Mhm.
I'm doing the same thing now.
I did. I just planned my schedule. Like
Oh
I
boy.
just got it done, and I was very intentional this year. I was like, I am not, because this year I did a 7.5 week run
Oh,
back to back, and it wasn't easy weeks. It was
no.
3 weeks of filming. It was 2 weeks of Rebel Rally. It was a week of SEMA, and then it was finally home. And it was
Oh,
like that is a very hard seven
yeah.
and a half weeks mentally. And so this week I was like, this year's I'm not doing that. I am going to book in weeks that
Yep.
are separated.
Good.
And now I'm already looking at it, I'm like I don't know if you can see this, but it's
Just
back to
filled.
back to back to back. And I'm like,
Oh man.
wait a minute, there is no extra weeks. Like they all get taken.
Yep.
But I did intentionally book in like 6 weeks because Dad and I are gonna start doing YouTube, our own stuff a little
Cool.
bit more this
Cool.
year. And so I'm like, all right, that's 6 weeks guaranteed
Yeah.
at home. It'll be okay.
That'll be good. That'll be good. Yeah, I think I might have messed up on some of my scheduling. I have my first half of the year done. Still waiting for some dates for some events on the back half. For like September and stuff. We
hmm
haven't got all the dates there yet, and I'm kind of waiting to see what's gonna
hmm
overlap and what I can make it to. But I know June and July is gonna be pretty crazy this year. It's always crazy, but it's gonna be another level of stupidity on my
Well,
part.
yeah. Yeah. You
But
have to remind yourself somewhere in the middle of it because it's very easy. You
yeah,
know this. Very easy to get jaded because sometimes I'm like, man, I have to do this 7 weeks of stuff. And then
yeah,
I'm like, wait a minute, like three
yeah. I'm
years ago.
complaining about doing what I want to do. Yeah,
3 years
yeah,
ago, I would have been like, this is the best thing ever. And
exactly.
you just have to reality check every once in a while. But
Yep.
I mean, you do get tired, like
Oh yeah.
7 weeks, 8 weeks,
Yeah.
up 2 months, whatever. It
Yep.
will make you tired. But yeah, sometimes I have to
That,
be like, I get to do
yeah.
7 weeks of this
Exactly.
stuff. So
Yeah, that one's gonna be real interesting. I am excited about it because we're kind of calling it the trifecta of the events because Six Summer, Big Sky, and then Rocky Mountain Race Week
oh
are
man.
like week after, like all three
Yeah.
weeks in a row.
Big Sky's
So
the one that's in like the Montana
yeah,
area, right? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's 1,200 miles from the end of Six Summer to Big Sky, and then it's another 1,200 from Big Sky down to Rocky Mountain Race Week.
Yee.
And we have a day in between each one of them.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah.
the one where you need help driving, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. That's the one that's
Yeah.
going to be real interesting. So I'm getting that figured out. We're getting that situated. Then after that, we got Midwest Drags, which I only have a week to get from, that'll be in Oklahoma and then back over to Kentucky. And then I have another week to get up to Canada for Miles of Mayhem if we're going to make it happen this year. Uh, so that it'll be, what was that? Three, four,
That's five, I think.
5, 6, 7. It'll be 8 weeks. So
Good luck.
yeah,
Have
it'll be
fun.
good. It'll be long because it takes. I can get up to Canada in 4 days, like because it's starting closer now. So 3 4 days
Okay.
pretty easily we can get up there, but it takes 3 or 4 days to get there. So it's like
I'll be watching. Have fun.
it's insane. So it'll be fun. My I know I can do it, but it's just keeping up with the videos and stuff. So that's what
Yeah,
I'm.
it's gonna be very hard.
Yeah.
And that's something that like some people understand, some people don't, but it's like um you get so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
And like we have another level of stuff. Like you have I'm sure you have something that equates to it, but
Yeah.
ours is like not only are we driving and getting a car ready and trying to
Yep.
sleep, it's like, okay, so I get to either sleep and eat dinner or get this
Or
video out on time.
exactly.
And it's like
Yeah.
one of those is crucial for survival. So this video is going to be late. Sorry. And it's amazing how little some people understand that because
Yep.
it's like, trust me, I would love, as much as you would love for this to be
Yep.
out, I would love for this to be out.
Yep.
But if I don't sleep for 2 hours, I have to drive 200 miles an hour
Yep.
tomorrow. I need I need
Yeah.
a little rest.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
good
For me,
luck.
it's just I got to get all the photo side done and the video side. So that's what messes with me. It's like
Oh, it's
I'm either gonna get one or the other done. Like
Well,
just
that's what I'm saying.
bear
Like I
with me.
know,
Yeah.
you've got on your side, you've got
Yep.
that, it's the same thing.
It's
It's
very
just it's
different.
different,
Yeah.
same thing but different. And I see that with Meg all the time. Like she does our photos and videos as well.
Mhm.
And it's very similar. Like she's like,
Yep.
I can get you this video tonight and I can edit pictures tomorrow. Which do you want? And
Yep.
I'm like,
Exactly. Yep.
let's do it in this order today. So
Yep.
yeah, well, good luck. That'll make some good
Thanks.
videos, but it's gonna
I'm
be
excited. I think it will.
you're gonna it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be
Yeah.
fun and trying all at the same time. So
Yeah. It will. It will. And I think, and this is we're still in the works to get it happen, but I might actually race my first drag and drive this year. So
really
yeah, I'm thinking about
very
doing
cool.
two, maybe. So we'll see.
Oh man, you're really gonna add to your plate now.
We're gonna
Photos,
see.
videos, driving,
Yeah,
packing. Good luck.
it'll be a good time. But it's two of them that are separated from others, so I don't have
Okay,
to. It won't be any back to back anything crazy
that's
like
good.
that. So
You need to
uh,
give a break.
and yeah, they're just regional events, so it's nothing
Okay,
too
so
crazy.
that way you're not too far away.
Yeah.
Still, it's a lot. That's still a lot to do.
Yeah.
So,
So it'll be fun though. I'm
well,
I'm
good luck.
excited because I've always wanted to race. That's been, it's always been the goal is to get to race and still do all the photos and everything because
Right.
I love doing photos, but I've always wanted to race too. So it's like I'm excited.
Well, good luck. That's
I'm gonna
awesome.
try to keep up with Alex Taylor. We'll just see, you know.
I
But
think you've got me beat on schedule this year, so you've
I don't
kept up
know.
with me in that way.
Maybe. Yeah, in case just I'll be at more Drag and Drive events. I know
You'll
that.
be more at
But
Dragon Trace,
yeah.
that's for sure.
How many are you planning on doing this next year?
Probably three.
Okay.
Right now I got 6 week, 6 summer, drag week, which
Okay.
doesn't sound like a full schedule,
Yes.
at all, but the
Well,
maintenance becomes
yeah.
a lot.
Well, I mean, when you look at even 3 years ago, you know, if you
Mhm.
did three events 3 years ago, like that was huge. I mean,
You
you know,
did
because
three
there was,
events 3 years ago. Three events is all there was.
yeah, pretty
Like
much. Yeah.
you
It was
had
like that's,
Rocky Mountain Race Week twice. I mean, for the longest time, for the first probably 7 years of my Dragon Drive, up until 2020, there were two events. There was
yeah.
Rocky Mountain Race Week and Drag Week. And then 2020, you had two Rocky Mountain Race Weeks and one Drag
Yep.
Week. And then in 2021, everybody said, we're all going to do a Dragon
Yep.
Drive. And now there's 50. So
Yeah. It's insane. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm trying to get to as many as possible. And that was the weirdest thing because when I started in 21, you know, it was
mhm,
just kind of that blossoming of everything started coming out and
it was a
there was a
lot.
whole bunch more events. And, um, I started getting like in 22, I started getting comments on my channel. They're like, "Well, where's 1320 at? They cover all these events." And it's like, but I mean, they were still
Yeah.
doing the same amount of events that they always covered,
Mhm.
but there was just so many more, and
You
that you
couldn't,
can't expect them to go to all of them. I mean, that's not. But it
no,
was just funny because they're like, "Oh, look, you're now the drag." Some of them were saying like, "Oh, you're Dragon Drive now."
that's
Like this,
awesome.
and I was like, "Okay, still watch them. Obviously, they're great, and they're gonna and they always do better content than I do. But it's just like it's kind of cool that it's becoming its own space, you know, because for them it was just kind of part of what they do, and that you go to a couple events because that's all there is, and you kind of report on it. But
Mhm.
now with it becoming so big and its own entity, kind of, it's like okay, this is kind of our own space. We're in the foreground of beginning to build it so big, and
It is, and it's very interesting. Like I've been there since 2013 in
yeah,
that, and there's a lot of people now that don't realize where Drag and Drive started, and
yeah,
it's interesting because like I wasn't even the first set of Drag and Drive. Like there's, whatever, 10 years, 9 years
yeah,
prior to my entry into it. So there was a whole section of people that had already came into Drag Week and left Drag Week.
yeah,
And now, I've gone on 10 years. This will be my 11th year of doing Drag and Drives. And there's a
insane.
lot of people that came in the last, like I said, it's 2020, 2021, and they don't realize like
Yeah,
where that history of it is. And so it's very interesting to see because I'll have people comment stuff to me about like, you should do a drag and drive. And I'm like, I've done like 20 drag and
yeah,
drives. And then also, like, or they'll be like, well, if you look at the rules, this
yeah,
is what it says. And I'm like, the rule I've watched the rules change. Like
yeah,
I've been parts of those changes,
yeah.
so it's very funny. And I'm not tooting my own horn there. I'm
No,
just saying like I've
no,
watched that evolution, and it's very interesting watching from
yeah,
2013 when you would tell somebody like I remember going to PRI and they're like, what do you do? And I was like, drag week. And it was a freak show. Drag
yeah,
week was a
yeah.
freak show. Drag and drive was not
Absolutely.
a thing. And you tell these companies, I'm going to drive my car and
Yep.
race it. And it was weird. Like people
Yeah.
didn't get it. And then like over the next like 3 or 4 years, it started to become like, oh yeah, I know drag week. And then
Yep.
now it's like, oh yeah, you race the drag and drive series. And it's
Yeah.
so funny to see that,
It is.
and I remember used to real quick, I know I've talked a
No,
lot, but
no,
real
you're
quick,
good.
the original when there was one event, for
Mhm.
years and years and years, it was just
Exactly.
drag week. And you spent all year getting
Yes.
ready for that one event. And there was a lot more high stakes, I think, at that time. I
Hmm.
remember like we were willing to do stupid stuff
Hmm.
during that event because you had another year to wait before you could do that again. And
Exactly.
I remember like I had shattered valve springs, like not broke a valve spring. I shattered every valve spring in my motor. And I remember telling dad, I was like, we can fix it. And he was like, we can't fix it. And I was like, we have a year to wait. We can fix this. I can get valve springs. we can do it. I would never say that now. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not from lack of care, but now I'm like, well, we got to make 5 other events this
Yeah.
year, so we have to make it last. And so it's really shifted that like all in mindset for some.
Mm-hmm.
And because now it's a longevity game, and it's
It
just
is.
it's a totally different world now. But it's
It's
cool. It's cool to
it
see it
is
grow.
so different because I remember my introduction to Drag and Drive was kind of in that I knew about it before. Like I had
Mhm,
heard about it, Power Tour and Drag Week. I had heard about it, but really whenever I got into college, and that was in like 2014 was kind of that era
mhm,
of whenever I really started kind of watching some of that stuff and
mhm,
seeing you out there and seeing everybody race and I was like, man, that's really cool, and we saw those things where
mhm.
people would give everything they had to finish those events. I mean, it was
And it was different.
absolutely, yeah.
It
And
was
I
different.
remember watching all that and being like, oh, that is the coolest thing ever. I
Mhm.
have to be involved in that somehow. And but I had no back then, I had no
It's just
idea where life was going to take and like
no.
anything. And like honestly, to go from that to having a podcast with you on here, like that blows my mind, really. Honestly, no, it does though, because it's just like thinking that how small the world is now, like
It
getting
is.
into the industry and seeing like, oh, okay, like these people are real people, like you see people on
It
TV
is.
or you see
Yeah.
something like that, and it's like you kind of start thinking of them different, or you just not different, but you don't know them, but it's like, oh,
Mhm.
you feel like you kind of know them, but then when you actually meet them, you meet people like yourself and the um Jeff Lutz and or
Mhm.
any of the guys that were in there, you start meeting those guys, Dave Schroeder and just all the big names, you just start meeting them and then you realize, oh, these guys are just people
Just
and
people.
they want to talk and they're cool and and like and then you get in the industry and you make friends with everybody. It's like, man, this is a cool group of people to be
And
around,
then
and
before you know it, you become part of
yeah,
the industry, and
yeah,
that is it's very cool. It's very cool too how they're welcoming like in my friend and that's the one thing that I hope doesn't change with Drag and
yeah,
Drive
I agree.
growing is you do see some different attitudes coming
Hmm.
into it because it's grown so much and the lack of knowledge sometimes can detract from the what Drag and Drive was. But like I
Yeah,
remember my very first year in 2013 when they told me I couldn't run because I was too young. And you had people like Jeff Lutz
yeah,
and you had those big names that actually wrote letters. My mom and dad reached
yeah,
out to them and asked them, and they actually wrote letters and said, like, I feel comfortable with her racing beside me. And they wrote those to Hot Rod, and
that's
that
cool.
community was like a really cool, they didn't know
That's
me.
cool. Yeah,
They didn't know me, but it was Drag and Drive. Like I remember my very first one. It was before Drag and Drive was a term, Drag
yep,
Week was, and it was one of those things where it's like the people here are amazing. And that's just something that I hope doesn't get too far away
mhm,
because it was different,
yeah,
and it was great. But I think it's going in the right direction as long as it
yeah,
grows at a good rate. But one more thing going back to like
mhm,
the 1320 coverage, I
yeah,
remember in 2007, my dad had the first, he traded Denny Terzic for the 2007 Drag Week winning car. And it was a black Camaro Pro Charged car. It was the first 7-second street car. And so that car kind of changed, well, like, for as
yeah,
far as those terms go, that car really changed the way that Drag and Drove went. He traded Denny Terzic for it. And that car was the predecessor for Tom Bailey's the
yeah,
first six car.
yeah, yeah,
And so that was also built by Denny. You know that. Some people might
mhm,
not, but like that car, so the 7-second car we had led to the orange car that Tom had, which now led to Sick Brand that it
yeah,
is. And so it's really funny. But anyways, I remember in 2007, we have the DVD from 1320 because there wasn't YouTube.
yep,
There wasn't all that. I mean, there was, but
yeah, but it was small. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so like used to Drag Week was covered and 1320 sold DVDs and I
yep,
have multiple of them and that's how you watch Drag Week and you got the
exactly.
DVD. And it's just so different, but it's cool to see how it's changed and now
Oh,
you
for
get to be
sure.
here and cover it. So it's very
Yeah,
cool.
I'm so blessed. I feel like I'm just so blessed to be able to be part of the industry now. And as we're still growing, obviously, I mean, we're definitely not anything to really. We're not
You've
there yet,
made
but we're
you've
working
made
on it.
big strides. You've made
Have
big
been, yeah.
strides. Yep.
So, and
So
it's been so much fun. And I want to thank you honestly for whenever I came in. I mean, you were one of the first big name people that really like reached out and was like, willing to do your interviews and was always so kind. And I love the way I love watching how you interact with your fans and interact with those people. Because I mean, it's all like it's so cool just to see like your people skills in that, like how
well,
you're
thank you.
always excited to see people and talk to them, and like when you see kids, it's cool to see just how you interact with them, and you try to get them into the sport and build
I
them up
appreciate that.
and everything. So
Well, thank you. Yeah, it makes
it's
a
always been good.
I at the end of the day, like that's and I'll get in trouble from dad. He'll be like, Alex, we got to change this. I'm like, but there's somebody I can talk to over here. And I love it. I love getting to talk to everyone.
Yeah,
And sometimes when you have a bad day, I remember one of my drag week dragging probably the last Rocky Mountain race week we're on. I had a bad day. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I never bought a piece this expensive in my life, but I had a $6,000 third member that I had just bought, and that hurts. Very
Hmm.
expensive. And it was supposed to solve all the problems that we were having. And the first pass with it, it grenaded itself. Like I'm talking, I ate everything, and we were having one of the worst days because I was like, like, it just hurt, like it
Yeah.
was
Oh
terrible.
yeah.
And I was not happy, and we were getting in trouble, and there was just so much stuff. And then this girl came up to me. She's probably 12 or 13, and she started crying, talking to me. She's like, I've just been waiting to meet you, and like all this. And I was like, I looked at dad, and I was like, we can't ever complain. Like, like that is such a reality check in that moment. And I was like, all right, I'm having a bad day, but I'm
Yeah.
lucky to get to do what I'm
Yeah.
doing. So
Yep.
no, I love getting to talk to everyone. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's cool. It definitely shows. That's for sure. So.
Well, thanks.
It's definitely people take note for sure, and I think that's one of the reasons for a lot of your success. Honestly, is just your personality and the way that you handle yourself and with
Well,
other
thank you.
people. It seems like you do really well with that. I guess one of the other questions I have kind of ties into that, but
Mhm,
you work with a lot of companies, obviously with
mhm,
Hot Rod, but then also just yourself with your brand. How does for somebody like me, coming up
mhm,
in the industry and trying to make it happen, what is advice that you would give to other people or like to me or anything,
mhm.
to people in that
Yeah.
sense of working with these brands? What is your number one, like what is your advice to somebody trying to get into that?
So I think one of the biggest things is we are in a time where influencer is um it's a big deal. And I think at the end of the day, sometimes people that are trying to get those relationships forget that the relationship has to be mutually beneficial. And something I've always said, and I think they do have a better understanding about it now, but at the end of the day, you become an extension of the company that you are representing. So everything that you say online,
Mhm.
whether you're doing a trend or whether you're doing something that gains you views or whatever, those actions now represent the company that you want to go after. And so I think sometimes people forget that
Mhm.
your messaging is very important. And even if you do it and you're like, and I'm the same way, I don't like authority. I don't. It sucks. But at the end of the day, I realized that like, okay, my brand has to be in a spot where somebody would want their brand to align with
Yeah.
that. And I'm never fake online, but I am very cautious. Like
Yeah.
if a song is, this is my own personal, there people will have different tastes, but for me, something I do is like if a song that's trending has cuss words in it,
Mhm.
I'm probably not going to use it on my reel because
Yeah.
there's kids that watch it. I find for me, that's my own personal thing. And for another thing is like companies might not align with that.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, it's figure out your morals
Mhm.
basically and how you want to represent yourself, and you will naturally find companies that align with that.
Makes sense.
And that's one of the biggest things. So finding that, and then at the end of the day, realizing that when you take a proposal to somebody, you have to make it as beneficial for them, if not more beneficial than it is for you. And at first, you're going to give a lot more than you receive. Like you will give way more post, you'll give
Mhm.
way more stuff than you're going to receive because you have to prove
Yeah.
yourself. And I think some people forget that you do have to prove yourself. Like I went through the trenches of people thinking that, um, like that I wasn't capable. I was young,
Yeah.
and so I can understand that. And so like you have to prove yourself and then accept that and then stuff will start happening.
Sure.
So it's just like putting in the work, understanding that sometimes slow growth is better than quick growth because you have to sustain that growth at the
Yeah.
end of the day. And the other thing is just keeping in mind that you are a marketing tool for them and you can both grow and just finding your actual path that you
Yeah.
like. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it's just
Yeah.
one of those things that like, of course there's like details of like how to write a proposal and how to do all that, but you have to have kind of those core
Yeah.
elements in order to be able to present that to somebody.
Awesome. Well, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you for the advice. Hopefully that helps me for sure, and I hope it helps others that are watching as well. So,
It's a little bit of a blanket, but it's
no,
not
it's
intentional.
good.
Like it's not to keep secrets away. Like anytime anybody
Yeah.
asks me like something specific, I'm like, yeah, I'll help you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, those things that I just said are what will make the company decide
Yeah.
if they want to work with you or not. So yeah,
Well,
that's
and I
that's
mean, I gave you a very broad question as well, so it wasn't like anything specific, so it makes sense. So,
yeah. So, but anyways, yep.
no, that's awesome. Well, is there anything that you want to let the people know? The all of the people that watch and listen to this podcast because it's
You
just,
know,
the biggest thing ever.
it's going
But
to explode.
it will.
Okay,
I'm
it will.
believing that. I believe that.
Uh,
I
um,
have to.
no, not really. We had a really good conversation and I really enjoyed this, but I don't have anything crazy news to
Okay.
announce or anything like that. So
You don't get any big scoops on anything.
no
Gee.
big scoops, but we had a good conversation. Probably one of the best podcasts I've had in a really long time. So
Well, thank
good
you. I
job.
appreciate it. Thank you so much. Well, thank
Yep.
you, Alex, for being here. Where can they find you? I mean, obviously you're very well known, but where are all the places they can find you?
Alex Taylor Racing on Instagram and Facebook, Riding with Alex Taylor on YouTube, and then Hot Rod Garage on Motor Trend. So
Awesome. Go check her out if you haven't already. Be very shocked, but go check her out. Make sure you see everything. Go see the 55. Go see all the other projects that they're working on, and their shops are crazy. What they get out, what they pump out of there. So
thank you. See
awesome.
you
Well,
at Sick Week pretty soon.
yeah, we'll be there in just a couple weeks. So
All
it'll
right.
be good to see you guys in person and all that. So thank you for being here. Thank everybody for listening in and watching. As always, have a blessed day. I'll talk to you guys next time.